evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday night, November 7th, 2016 at 7:02 p.m. Our first item of business is to establish a quorum, and all members of council are present tonight. Next item of business is disposition of the minutes, and we have those held for the regular session held October 3rd and also for our regular session held October 17th. I have a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The minutes are approved.
Can we remind people where you can find the minutes? There's been some question about where they are
The
stored.
minutes, if people do want to review these, are on our face page of our Athens City website, and it's on the left-hand bar, and it's under Documents and Forms. So it's that's where they are. We all struggled with finding them this last week so when there was a request for information. So thank you.
Is that where the committee minutes are as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Sorry, if I may.
Mayor Patterson.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
just so everyone knows, because I went through this too, this iteration, and make sure you go on to the year 2016, because then it populates all the minutes by year. Otherwise, it shows up, nothing is posted at this time, which is, you have to go all the way through all the steps for the links.
And I do think we have them archived since 2008 online. We'll move on to communications. And Athens City Council has received a notice from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for a D1 permit for Kenny's Panda Restaurant. This is the China Panda Restaurant at 965 East State Street. This is a D1 permit, beer only, for on premises or sealed containers for carryout. And we would have to file a response to this if council would be interested in doing so by December 1st, 2016. Councilmember Patty.
Do we know if this is an open license? This doesn't put us over the limit. Do we know?
I wondered the same thing, but I'm assuming that they would not, Division of Liquor Control would not issue, or Department of Commerce would not issue a permit if we were over our limit.
That's correct.
But it's worth a double check at which we can do at the website. But thank you for asking the question, Councilmember Pappy. Communications from other council members. Do we have any? Yes.
Thank
Councilmember
you,
Cochran.
President Nisley. I do want to acknowledge communication that I received. I fielded a lengthy phone call last week about our new recycling carts. And this particular citizen was concerned about her legal liability having possession of a piece of the city property. And so I wanted to share that and acknowledge that there have been a number of complaints about the challenges of where to store these carts, but by and large, most of the comments that I've heard have been positive about moving in the right direction with these new carts.
Thank you. We'll have reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Elias.
No.
Auditor Hecht.
No report.
Okay. Mayor Patterson.
I have just a couple of communications. I've received a number of questions about the new recycling bins, but I also received a number of communications from throughout populace of Athens asking for bins as well. The city has made some allowances for individuals who have special needs and therefore can retain their red bins. By and large, I believe it's been pretty successful in rolling those out. This weekend, this Friday is Veterans Day. The Veterans Day Parade will be rolling through from Morris on up Carpenter onto Court Street and terminating at the College Green at the War Veterans Memorial. The Okta survey is live. The optimal town gown survey.
College Town Assessment.
Thank you.
Optimal College Town
Thank you,
Assessment.
President Nisley.
And I think later
I knew it wasn't matching
we'll
up.
do one more announcement of this towards the end of the meeting because Ryan's given a screenshot of where that is on our website, so it'll be easy for people to find, so thank you.
That's all I've got.
We'll move on for ordinances for third reading. We have one of them tonight. It's 12216. This is an ordinance amending ordinance 1816 to increase the appropriation and authorized expenditure for the depot lift station, project number 286, and declaring an emergency. It's introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Nisley. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 12216.
Second.
Thank you. This particular ordinance, as you recall, is approximately $30,000 to address a smell, an issue that was emanating from the depot lift station. So it was a part of the project that was scheduled to be addressed, but then had been briefly neglected, and so this will address that concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second for approval of 12216. Do we have any other comments or questions from council members, administration, audience? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to ordinances for second reading. 12316 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary and enter into a contract for design and engineering of the water treatment plant facilities improvements, project number 307, and requesting the auditor to borrow funds, introduced by Councilmember Butler. Ordinance 12416 is an ordinance authorizing a one-year extension of the current franchise agreement with the Ohio Power Company for use of the city right-of-way as authorized by Ordinance 14313 and extended by Ordinances 12614 and 11315. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall. Ordinance 12516 is an ordinance amending the 2016 appropriation ordinance, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 12516.
Second.
The reason for suspension is there's a time element here. The municipal court is upgrading their court computer system. They've already obtained the new software, but the hardware has not yet been ordered because they need the funds appropriated to do so. And the court feels that it's a matter of necessary for the court to function to get this thing going. So,
Okay. We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Reisner.
I move that we adopt 12516,
Second.
and for all the reasons that I stated previously.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 12516. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ordinance has been approved with that motion. Ordinance 12616 is an ordinance authorizing improvements to Highland Park, project number 308, and is introduced by Councilmember Pappy. We'll now move on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 12716 is an ordinance amending the 2016 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 12716.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Reasons being that as part of this ordinance, the city has a bill to pay its due, so we need to appropriate the necessary funds to get the bill paid.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for suspending the rules for 12716. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
Allow me to read the ordinance. The 2016 appropriation ordinance 12015 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $22,000 to General Fund 101.207 TC 300 for new officer training, and $71,000 to Transportation Fund 214 TC 200-300, an increase in the appropriations by said amount. Section 2, the 2016 Appropriation Ordinance 1/2015 is further amended by decreasing increase in the following appropriations. Decrease Transportation Fund 214 TC 500 by $16,393 and increasing TC 200-300 by same amount, and decreasing and increasing the total appropriations by the said amount. Having read it, I motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 12716. And any other comments or questions from council members? Yes, Councilmember Pappy.
On the transportation funds, maybe the auditor can help me here. The reasoning for that was 71,000 to Transportation Fund 214, and then decreased Transportation Fund 214 by 16,000.
Well, there's money in another account line that has to be transferred by council for us to go ahead and use that.
Okay.
This is this spreadsheet that Paula handed out. I believe
Right.
Patty prepared this.
Right.
And, you know, we have revenue for that, and then we have expenses, and it's just, this is what they've calculated we need through the end of the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. So we have a motion and a second for approval of 12716. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 12816 is an ordinance amending the 2016 staffing levels authorized by Ordinance 7116 and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules. We have to amend it first. Okay. Good point. Shall I read it first before making the motion?
The amendment is
For
what
the
you're going to read?
This is all.
You just need, to make a motion to move to amend.
Okay, we make a motion to move to amend.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion
I'm going
and
to add that in circles there.
Okay.
we have a motion and a second to amend the ordinance. And Councilmember Reisner, can you explain that for us, what we're doing tonight?
Well, we're going to add to the ordinance, help me out here, with a general secretary position at the code office. It's 101351 general code. It's going to be bumped up from a .73 part-time equivalent position to a full-time position, that's a 1, through December 31st, 2016. That's what we're amending. The problem is, the situation at the code office is we have a part-time person working there, and for various reasons that, well, let's just say this person has worked more than a part-time equivalent position should be working. They're actually over the amount of hours that they,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor
Go ahead.
Pedersen, yes, for clarification.
Yeah, clarify this.
Here, for this individual being three-quarter time, .75, the amount of time that this person would have to work to stay under or to stay at that .75 would amount to about 6 hours a week moving forward from now to the end of the year, whereas this position needs more time than that. So it's a temporary increase in the staffing ordinance to go from .75 for this particular position to 1, and then come the beginning of the year, it would revert back to either half-time, .5, or .75.
Okay. So it's a temporary increase, sometimes like we've done for other departments.
These are both temporary through December 31st, which
Okay.
is up there in section 1. both of them are a result of vacancies in other full-time positions in those offices and the amount of work being behind. So the part-time people have been putting in more hours than they're allowed for the year. This will allow them to continue working and helping their departments through the end of the year.
Okay.
But it is temporary.
Okay.
For all three positions.
So our amendment to this at this point, for which we have a motion and a second, is to move for the general secretary position in the code office from .75 to 1 to a 1, it would be equivalent of a full-time position. So all those in favor, are there, well,
Might add, there's another section on here, which is the chart that's on the back of the page. And this is just adding intern positions to the water and sewer plants. They don't have any part-time people. Seasonal workers are pretty much for the summer and only allowed to work 120 days period a year. And they had a seasonal person that they put in for EPW. Well, that's not a department. They don't have a budget. Anybody that's paid through EPW is either paid out of water, sewer, or streets. And so in order to move this part-time person around from streets to the plants, there needs to be a position available in those funds. These are intern positions. It's a very part-time position, and it's just to allow us to pay them out of the appropriate fund that they're working at, instead of paying them for streets, even though they're working at the water plant or something like that.
So it's kind of like a floater position.
It is.
But you need to make sure
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't that originally, and they like this person, and they would like to continue using him, and so it is. But as an intern, they only work 20 hours a week, and I don't think he even works that this time of year. And so, you know, it's just the other, almost every department has an intern position, and they just don't happen to have those at water and sewer. And of course, this is all just through the end of the year, and in December, if you want to change your staffing ordinance and add or take away anything, you can for next year. But this one, I believe, I asked for this one when I was here last week, and could easily be left in there. It's very minimal impact on budgets. And as I said, they really like this person and have been utilizing him.
And the engineer, or city engineer would like for that to remain, as opposed to revert back to a street-only intern, to keep it to where a third comes from street, sewer, and water. Because it does, as the auditor was saying, it makes this person more flexible. And also it kind of enhances that particular internship to where you could become more multifaceted as opposed to only doing whatever, under street or under sewer or underwater. So it's just a different approach. And this administration concurs with the auditor and that this would be a good thing. And again, I think our city engineer wants to retain this moving into 2017.
okay, so that's the second part of the amendment then, making that position responsible and potentially serving in 3 different departments. Okay, streets, water, and sewer. Okay, so we had a motion, and I think I was corrected, we don't have a second yet for the amendment.
For amending, I second the
Okay.
amending process. Thank you.
Okay. All right, a motion and a second to amend ordinance 12816. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, the motion has been amended and read for the first time. Now, I think Councilmember Reisner, we move to suspend.
Okay, now I make a motion that we suspend.
Second.
Okay. And since time is of the essence,
It is. These people are needed now and actually have been working over a little bit already. So the sooner we are paying them and working them in accordance with their ordinance, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
So a motion and a second to suspend ordinance 12816. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay? The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
I move we adopt 12816
Second.
for all the reasons so far. I
Okay.
have nothing more to add.
We now have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 12816. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 12916 is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2016 year-end appropriations. This is introduced again by Councilmember Reisner.
I really hate to do this. It's getting awful repetitious. Could I make a motion to suspend the rules for 12916?
Second.
And I'll let the auditor justify why I'm doing this.
I will.
Yeah, can
I
we just
will.
give a general, I mean, it seems like the end of the year especially, but that we're suspending a lot. And I think that it should be understood that a lot of these are amendments and that for bills that come in, you know, sort of.
Yeah, well, this is something we've been passing for several years for the auditor's office to do this, after being asked by the state auditors to do this. And we actually passed it last year in November, so we kind of dropped the ball on this and it should have started in October. But we need time to do this towards the end of the year because we have to comb through all of our funds and accounts and reduce the appropriations if the money didn't come in. Because we've never overspent money that we didn't have. However, on paper, if our appropriations are up here and the money comes in here, even though we only spend down here, it looks like we could spend more than we should, and so the auditors want them reduced. But it's a time-consuming process for us. So the option to this was to put a 30-day emergency clause on it, but I think the law director recommended that we just suspend it instead of going through 3 readings and then having that emergency clause, because we can't really wait until the very end of December to get this done before we close our books out at the end of the year.
Okay, we have a motion and a second at this point to suspend. Thank you for the explanation, Auditor Heck. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
I move we adopt 12916.
Second.
Glad I heard that second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of this ordinance. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ordinance has been approved with passage of that motion. Thank you. We now have ordinance 13016, an ordinance authorizing design engineering of the 2017 water line replacement, which is project number 310, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. We discussed this in committee meeting. As you recall, the city engineer director, EPW, Andy Stone, has been combing through the city trying to address aging water lines, and this is an attempt to do so specifically on the north side with the vicinity of Strouds Run Road, Columbia Avenue, and Northwood Drive at the top of Cable Lane. In a conversation I was having with him earlier today, the aging water line is such that the pipe is for lack of a better word, sort of like calcifying the way that our arteries might with a clog, so to speak. So the circumference is getting tighter and tighter and leading to breaks and challenges. So this is an attempt to address some of those issues that are desperately needed on the north side. It's approximately, we're authorizing the city service safety director to expend up to $60,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to ordinance 13116. This is an ordinance authorizing disposal of 2 Athens transit buses no longer needed for a municipal purpose. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. We discussed this at transportation meeting last week. This is basically a formality where when buses are retired, we need to go through a process and allow them to then be bid out for other purposes, so to speak. So that's what this ordinance is about.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 13216 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a lease agreement with the Athens County Agricultural Society and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. This is the formal agreement, the ordinance to continue with the formal agreement with the Fair Board or the Athens County Agricultural Society to continue our parking, off-street parking lease agreement, which is used pretty well. There's a lot of cars that pay to park down there. So this is just formalizing the lease agreement.
Thank you. Ordinance 13316 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 1716, bed and breakfast regulations, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, President. This particular ordinance is amending the ordinance that we had passed a couple weeks ago, because that has been a complicated process. It was mistakenly thought that we had already amended it. So this is the amending process that is adopting the amendments that we thought was already on the bed and breakfast regulations, and declaring an emergency so that it goes in parallel with the other amendments that had been happening. So, need a
So
second?
at this point, we have a motion
I have a motion.
to amend.
Yes, to amend.
A second?
I move to, we have to vet.
Yeah, we have to do that first.
I just
Okay.
want to get this over
Yeah,
with.
all right. We have a motion and a second to amend ordinance 13316. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ordinance has been amended and read for the first time.
I would like now to suspend the rules because of all the complicated paperwork and such. We need to have this go parallel with the other ordinance, and such, why we have an emergency clause on it too.
Okay. So we have a motion.
I
Do I hear a
motion,
second?
please.
Second to suspend, so that we can make sure that this is in effect at the same time that our other bed and breakfast ordinance becomes effective. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Fall.
And I would thank you for being patient with this complex sort of issue to my council people.
Okay. All right, so the rules have been suspended, so now you can make the motion to,
I move that we adopt 13316.
okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 13316. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Katsas?
I need to abstain again.
That would probably be a good thing to do.
Since you did the first time.
Okay, then I
Okay,
will.
Thank you.
I
For
will
the same
abstain.
reasons?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you for making that point. All right, a motion and a second for approval, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and abstentions. One abstention. Thank you. All right, ordinance 13416 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $625,000 of notes by the city of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying part of the costs of design engineering of the water treatment plant facilities improvements. This is project number 207, and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I believe to clarify, project number 307. This is simply just to authorize the money for the design and engineering. We discussed this in committee meeting and heard about the challenges and aging infrastructure of our water plant. So this would be an attempt to begin to address some of those many long-term needs. We are working with a local bank, the Hocking Valley Bank, which has agreed to purchase an issue of such notes. We've had a past positive history in working with that local bank. I don't know if the mayor or the auditor want to add anything else to this discussion.
Interest rate is 0.75. It's gone up a little bit, but
Still much lower than we can get anywhere else.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Comments?
Councilmember McGee.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just as a question for the public, a lot of us understand that we've had a new water treatment facility, and we're just curious, or at least I'm curious, why we suddenly have an additional expenditure of $600,000.
So, and maybe for clarification, to help answer that, as well as the mayor's office, we have a new wastewater treatment plant.
Right.
So that is sewer, essentially.
Right.
This is our drinking water,
Right.
different entities.
Just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
because I know some people do not know that distinction, and thank you for doing so.
Good to clarify.
I think my understanding, and again, there may be those that know more than me, the building, I believe, is 1950s.
1957. For Plant 1, there's 2 plants down there, and Plant 2 is in the late 1960s. But, so this is an old plant for a water treatment plant.
And it may be worthwhile too at some point for us to, we know that there's a need, obviously, to make sure that we're on top of the concerns for our local water. Obviously, we've seen headlines in other communities, and this is an attempt to address that.
No, I
No,
mean,
I mean,
our water
no,
quality
right,
is
exactly, is fine.
outstanding.
Right.
This is, a lot of this is replacing mechanicals inside the building. With 1957 building, we've got 1957 mechanicals in a lot of places, so those mechanicals need to be upgraded to where they're state-of-the-art, or at least, digital controls inside the building, as well as, one of the major things is, there's 3 different voltages coming into the building, and one of them is a very old form of voltage, so it's realigning it to where there's a single voltage coming in, powering the entire plant. But I do need to I know you didn't mean this, but to stress this once again.
Our water's
Anybody
good.
going to our Consumer Confidence Index, we have our water, our report rather, is outstanding water, so
And that report is available on the website,
it is.
on the front page of the website, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll move on to ordinance 13516. So I'm glad, Councilmember McGee, you made the distinction between water treatment and wastewater treatment, because this next one does have to do with wastewater treatment. This is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $450,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued to pay part of the costs of improvement to this municipality's wastewater treatment plant and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Administration need to say anything about this?
Again, this was on a very low interest rate loan, and so it's just reissuing that going forward.
We discussed this a few weeks ago, how much we would pay down. We've been paying down about $100,000 at a time, and so we did that again this year. It was at $550,000. The original note was $850,000, and these were energy improvements that we made before we started the actual improvements for the wastewater plant. And so that's where we are in that.
No need to suspend.
Not tonight.
Good.
You tired of suspensions?
Ordinance 13616 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $50,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes issued to pay part of the costs of acquiring a new fire truck and related equipment and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Well, again, we've been through this several times. We have our fire trucks, we buy them, and we have to pay the notes on them. And we've been very fortunate because Ohio University has been contributing to this, so we're able to sort of half the cost.
On this one, we had saved money also for several years. We had $400,000 that we could pay down on it when we bought it. It was over $1 million. This is the ladder truck. And the other thing about this is we only owe $100,000, so we're paying $50,000 down, and next year we should be done with this one.
That's great.
We'll own it free and clear.
Okay. Good. We'll move on to announcements and other business, and we do have a series of 5 motions. And this is confirming appointments made by the mayor to certain commissions and advisory councils. So we'll move forward with those. The first of these being with Councilmember McGee. And he's going to be making a motion for our city-county health board.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move at this time to approve the reappointment of a Dr. Robert Woodworth to the City County Health Board.
Second?
Okay, a motion and a second for the reappointment of Robert Woodworth to the City-County Health Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And Councilmember McGee, the second motion?
Oh, yes, and I would also move to approve the reappointment of Keith Chapman and Cyrus Moore II, and the new appointment of Pamela Callahan to the Historic Preservation Commission. And in regards to that, I should point out that Ms. Callahan is a registered architect who has served 24 years as OU University planner and 10 years in the private sector of the USA and abroad, so I think she's highly qualified.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the reappointment and then a new appointment for the Historic Preservation Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Councilmember Katsas has several appointments.
President Nisley, thank you. I would like to make a motion at this time to approve the reappointment of 4 community members to the Municipal Arts Commission. And those 4 are Donovan Noble, Carol Patterson, Elizabeth Braun, and Andrea Lewis. And I would like to already thank the work that they've done so far as community members, donating their time to the city. And I also do want to note that we also have 1 open space that is coming soon. I assume, Mr. Mayor? Yes. Okay. All right.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of the reappointment of 4 of the members of the Municipal Arts Commission.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Sounds unanimous. And Councilmember Katsas, another motion.
Yes, thank you. I would like to make a motion at this point to approve the reappointment of Marilyn Zweyer to the Rec Advisory Board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the appointment of Marilyn Zweyer, to the Recreation Advisory Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you. I move to approve the reappointment of David Sinkoff, Lee Gregg, Emily Wood, and John Katowski to the Athens Shade Tree Commission.
Second.
Okay, a motion for the reappointment of 3 of our members on the Shade Tree Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I have one other announcement, and then in the control booth, if they can bring up that town gown survey. While we're talking, I do want to just mention that tomorrow is Election Day, and hoping that everybody who is registered to vote, even if you have voted or moved, I think you can still vote provisionally in the polling place. So encouraging everybody to get out and vote if at all possible. It's an important moment. And then the last item that I have for an announcement is this town gown survey. I'm hoping there it is, we can call up the website. So this is on our city page, and it's City News, and you can take the town gown survey, as the mayor mentioned previously. It's open for just a few weeks, and what we're doing is soliciting comments from persons about relations between town and university, and also we've added some questions about accessibility of town, places in town, and also at the university setting, so it's important. Are there any other announcements?
President Nisley?
Yes.
This isn't an announcement per se, but perhaps an elicitation of a reminder for folks that there is a schedule up on the city webpage as well of leaf pickup, and I believe that's gone out via press release as well as the pickup of the old orange recycling bins. So perhaps you can put leaves in your orange recycling bin and have them all picked up at the same time, but maybe not. But that information is also available on the website.
Okay. Thanks very much. And I think the pickup of those recycling bins starts on November 13th. I believe it is. Okay, for several weeks. So you can get rid of them that way. Okay, any other announcements? Mayor Patterson.
There are a few. Again, I mentioned the Veterans Day Parade. It begins at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. And then the closing event will be on College Green, as I stated, at the Veterans Memorial. I'd also like for people to take note of a program that I know Auditor Hecht has been involved in, and so is Chris Nisley, President Nisley, and that is the banners, the veteran banners that hang up and down Court Street. So just encourage people to get out and make note of that. Franklin Avenue project, there's going to be paving going on this week on Franklin Avenue, the repaving. So we remind people to please adhere to the street closing signs so that people's cars don't get towed. But people should be paying attention to that. City offices will be closed this Friday. And then finally, there's a one-day trash delay this week. It's for those whose trash is picked up on Friday. Typically on Friday, your trash will not be picked up on Friday. It'll be picked up on Saturday.
All right. Thanks very much. We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Is there anyone wanting to speak tonight? Okay. In a moment, we're going to be moving into executive session, and we'll do that by way of passing a motion to go into that. What we'll do is pass that motion. We'll then give people 10 minutes at 7:45 right now. We'll give you to 7:55 to ask. I know some of you are here for Dr. Sudis's class, so you might have questions to ask of administration or council members. So if I could have the motion.
I move to enter into executive session for pending and imminent legislation with all members of council present. Pending and imminent litigation, sorry. We already did the legislation. All members of city council present, as well as the mayor and law director.
If you'd like to stay, would you?
Sure.
Okay.
And the auditor.
And the auditor. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. And we'll do the roll call vote. Councilmember Butler? Member Reisner?
Aye.
Member Pappen?
Aye.
Member Fall? Member
Aye.
Cochran? Member Cochran? And Member McGee? Okay, so we'll have 7:45 to 7:55, and we'll close the doors for the executive session at 7:55, so you can come up now. And you can also return after we have finished our executive session if you do have some additional questions that we weren't able to complete. Thank you.